All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the May 14th, 2025 Municipal Facilities Optimization Committee meeting. We have a quorum and this meeting is called to order. First on the agenda, we have to review and act to approve the meeting minutes of April 23rd, April 24th, and May 1st. I'm going to take these out, not all together because different people were at different meetings for the vote. All right, so do we have any questions on the April 23rd meeting minutes? There being none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept April 23rd minutes of meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the April 23rd, 2025 meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted unanimously. And now we have April 24th. That was the meeting at the Senior Center. Any discussion? We have a motion.
I make a motion to accept April 24th minutes of meeting.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the April 24th meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 3-0 with 2 abstentions. And I have to abstain also as I wasn't there. And then we have the May 1st, 2025 meeting minutes. Any questions?
I make a motion to accept May 1st minutes of meeting.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the May 1st, 2025 meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's
I abstain.
3-0 with 2 abstentions. Thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda, we have bills to pay. First one is HKT Architects for the amount of $323,701.10. We have HKT Architects again, $159,515.40. The Vertex Companies, $28,346. And Fontaine Brothers, $40,000, for a grand total of $551,562.50. Any questions regarding bills?
Can we get a status on where we are and what deliverables have been met up to this point?
Sure. So we can start with HKT. So we had pricing from HKT to provide through the 60% documents, and that was the program to get us to the place to town meeting. We had another proposal from them to go from town meeting then forward. I don't believe that I don't know if that was distributed or wasn't distributed. I'm not sure. We didn't get to that yet, so we didn't make any recommendations with that yet. So the billing that they have was to get through where we got through, was to do through 60%. And so I am gathering the documents. I don't have them in hand yet, but I'm sure we'll get everything we need to get there with some of the site survey work, et cetera, all from them. So they're compiling that now. I can jump to Fontaine because the situation was very similar with Fontaine. They had a $60,000 proposal to get us through to town meeting, and also part of their contract, an $80,000 proposal, which would follow with a successful vote to get us to a GMP. And so all that is in place. And for example, the timing for the billing for the first section, the $60,000 section, was to have 3 billings, even though they only provided 2. And the contract reads that each one would be no more than 20,000. And so each of the 2 groups, HKT and Fontaine, only provided 2 billings. So they're only last month's and this month's. So just to kind of, top of the trees kind of summary of how those 2 contracts worked.
So these are final billings then, to
They're
the
all
60%
complete
documents?
final billings, yes.
Very good. And the other obviously have not been executed yet to go to
Correct.
GMP.
Correct.
And these are, so we have the drawings, the information electronically, however else we want it. So we're all set.
Yeah, to be clear, they're compiling all of that,
Right.
Yeah.
and so, yeah, we don't have it physically in hand, but we're compiling that right now.
But we will get it in
Yes.
here, and then there'll be no more doing anything.
Right.
Until next steps, which we'll discuss later.
And plus
Right.
that includes all the sub-consultant work documents too.
And documents.
Yep.
So all these other items, like traffic engineering, environmental, and all that is part of that package that we're gonna get.
Right, so to those specific items, those are part of the supplemental services as opposed to the base services. And
Correct.
supplemental services get billed if that work is done, and some of those items, as you can see, did not get done or billed and were deemed to be not necessary to do yet. And so that's why that work wasn't done.
Okay. And we have a number for that if we need to go to that number.
Yes.
Later on in life.
Yeah, as a reference,
As a reference,
Yes,
if in fact,
yes.
when and what we want to do.
yes.
Okay, good.
So Steve, if these are all the bills we're gonna be getting to date at this point, where are we in terms of how much we've spent and how much out of the total budget?
So I can run through the three groups or four groups with both designers. So the Vertex total amount spent 269,856. There's a somewhat similar to the supplemental condition. There is another $50,000 line item in the budget which will not be spent. So we're done.
Mhm.
So the 269,856 is it. HKT, that 1,595,205 is their total. And Fontaine's total is the 60,000. And the HKA total spent was 165,000. And all that adds up to 2,090,061. Or $90,061, saying that.
And that's
correct.
out of 2.25 that we
Yes.
had initially. Okay,
Yes.
so
One,
And this is it, nothing else. We're done.
That's-
Everyone is complete, fully billed.
when HKT, at last month's meeting, they had mentioned they had something to do with the wetlands, like a survey. So I'm wondering if there were any surprises, number one, and if that billing has been, I see environmental permitting, but does that cover wetlands?
Designation.
I'll confirm.
Okay.
I know the call for this meeting as to have in by Friday was, that's it, 100% done.
Okay.
And so that was the call, but remembering that conversation, I'll check with him to.
And if there's surprises too, that,
Yep.
that we didn't have anything that was found.
So just if anybody asks out in the public, we did come in under budget up to this point. We're at 92.9% spent, okay? If there are any questions out there.
Good job.
All right. All we have to do is pay these bills. Do we have any other discussion or can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay the bills as listed previously by the chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Next is review and discuss the May 6, 2025 annual town election. Who would like to begin?
We didn't pass the ballot question.
Did that?
It failed by 565 votes or something of that nature. So a margin of 56% against and 44% for. And the select board met last night and discussed possible next steps for the project. And there's three of them. One is we just stop and don't go forward. The second is to bring the project forward at a later date. And the third is to make some changes to the project, perhaps reduce the scope of work and bring it back to the public at a later date. So that's sort of where the select board started the conversation. Everyone's wanted to pause for now and have an opportunity to listen to the community and hear what residents are thinking, right? Like, why was there a no vote? I mean, I don't know about the rest of the committee, but the people that I talk to are mostly yes voters. And so I think it's really important that we get some perspective on what was it that people couldn't get behind at a project that was very well vetted and yet was voted down. And I don't think there's any one reason, right? And I think we agreed on that last night at the select board meeting. Like, there's a variety of reasons. Some people just cannot afford more. Some people are concerned about the uncertainty economically just out in the world. There are people who did not, for whatever reason, comprehend what was happening with the town hall and didn't trust that there was really no expansion.
Mhm.
There were people who couldn't overcome the $10 million between the incorrect estimate from the initial architect and the correct figure from the current project team. There are people that voted no because they think that the police station is too big. And, you know, my answer to that is always the police station was built with a 50-year lifespan. And so if it was the exact size we needed right now, we would have built it too small. And I think if we picked up the old Beale School and we put it next to the new Beale School, people would think that that building looked gargantuan as well because it's built for growth. We're not trying to build something that's oversized, but we do want to try to fit equipment that is modern equipment and make sure that the building is right size with enough room that we're not coming back. I think a great example, right, is the high school is undersized and it was built, opened overcrowded, and now we're looking at an expansion project. I think the expansion project discussion out in the community had an impact on this vote. So I mean, I can continue on with what I have
I
heard
agree.
from people,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's any one thing we can point to. I think the decision just has to be, what do we do?
Yeah.
Because this was the window, right? This was the time where there was debt rolling off, there was a break in the action, and the community was pretty resoundingly
Yeah.
no.
I think there was also some confusion around, I think there's still confusion out in the community as to what an override versus a debt exclusion.
Yes.
Very much so, because I've talked to several people that voted no, and they said it was a 2.5 override. I said, no, it wasn't. That's what it said in the verbiage that was put in to that item. I said, you need to read it very carefully. And they didn't understand it.
No,
And
and that's
that's part of the
always
problem.
been, that has always been an issue. People trying to explain to people the difference between a debt exclusion
Mhm.
and an override.
Right.
Because they're both part of Proposition 2.5, but they are two different
Yes, they are.
functions.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
More to come, I guess, on, you know, so the board will be considering over the summer then, the select board.
Yeah, it's
as to
disappointing,
which-
right? It's disappointing.
Yeah, no, it is, yeah.
There's been a lot of work that's gone into this project. I think it's been excellent work.
Yeah.
I think we've been very forthright with the community all along. The minute we realized there was a difference between the initial estimate and the actual project cost, we raised up the flags, we had the conversations. You know, I think we did a great job with outreach, right, by inviting people to the DPW, but I think then we missed people who didn't want to come to us. So how can we go to them, and what does that look like if we're going to be talking to people?
Right.
But I think as a committee, right, when we're out, we all touch different parts of the community. I just keep asking people, why'd you vote no?
Yeah.
I got an earful at the hardware store today. And it's like this, you know, there's a bunch of people that just hang around and they are willing to tell you,
And
like,
what was their reason, just out of curiosity?
not understanding that the cost was $50 a year on the average single family bill.
I heard that too.
You're right, not knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big one. That and just property taxes in general are just higher than what they've been, and people feel that crunch and
Yeah.
aren't willing to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said it was not a great project.
Spent a lot of time trying to explain to people why it went from 30 to 40 also,
Yes.
because they think, well, we'll just vote no and we'll get it back to 30. I said, you won't have the same scope and you won't meet the optimization of the town DPW or the town hall. You won't be there.
Yeah.
But you could do less, but it won't be a 50-year plan and you'll be back at it in 10, you know, like the high school. We'll be doing something else. But, I mean, what can we do as a committee to help this? Just be on standby and then,
Well, I think, you know, what we learned from the select board last night is that they want to do listening sessions, we want to build out a survey to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, learn from the community. So we don't know what those listening sessions may look like, we have to work that through with the board. But I think, you know, we'll need committee members to help with that, as we always have.
Sure.
You know, be at those meetings and talk to people and help us with that stuff and see where it leads.
Are you considering like a Survey Monkey type of thing that goes out, or
Well, I don't know if it's Survey Monkey.
Yeah.
but,
something?
Taylor
similar.
uses something. and
Yeah, yeah.
To put out to the community.
Yeah.
So we have to talk that through, we gotta talk about the questions,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing, and figure it out. There's that piece, and then the other piece I just wanna mention is that, so we met with, not all, but probably 30 or so of the DPW staff on Friday morning to talk this through, right?
Mhm.
So they're kind of in the loop, you know, letting them know that we're still actively trying to
Yep.
get them a building and figure out how that's gonna happen. You know, they're of course disappointed,
Sure.
you know, and you know, one of the comments was, they kind of work in a marginal building, right? Like, and they, so it's, they were hopeful that the community would, support that, and it didn't happen, but
Yeah.
we're still dedicated to figure out a way to improve their workspace. Maybe go forward with a project or whatever.
Mhm.
That was a good conversation we had with them. I'm sure we'll have more.
Can any of the budget money that we have left be used for any of the polling or public outreach, or I'm not sure what the
That's a question I'd have to ask.
rules are, I'm not sure how that works.
For that,
Yeah.
because, they are, town meeting voted to use them in a certain way. So
Mhm.
we're probably definitely looking at how that can be used.
Okay. Figured it was worth asking.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
We had several people ask, I work in commercial building construction, and I could build this building for a quarter of what you're saying. And I think you had the conversation with someone about prevailing wage.
Yep.
Yep.
And I don't know if you mind, because maybe people will watch our meeting, and I think you'll do a better job of explaining prevailing wage, why a municipal building inherently costs more than if you were building a commercial building.
Sure, and there's, these days, we have this conversation a lot, and part of it's prevailing wage, which is the, the wage that's required and issued, the rates issued by the Commonwealth of Mass that are all, part of the chapter 149 and 149A construction, public construction projects. So all of the labor on the projects are paid in accordance with the prevailing wage as issued by the Commonwealth. So, those wages are higher than you might find elsewhere. Not always, but generally they're higher than you find elsewhere. So, elsewhere meaning not in urban areas. If you travel further west, you may be able to buy projects for less money. If you get out of Massachusetts, absolutely can buy projects for less money because labor is less expensive. And there's a lot to that. If someone, another conversation we have a lot these days is a comparison to a project that opened 3 years ago, for example. And that project that opened 3 years ago, as we know, this planning process takes a long time. If a project opened 3 years ago, let's say it takes, make up 2 years to build, 2 years to plan, something like that. So that's actually 7 years ago when that starts. So if you look at cost escalations, like with the prevailing wages, escalation happens with that prevailing wage. It changes twice yearly. The prevailing wages are, the state issues that twice per year, and the wages go up each time. So, and that's just the prevailing wage rates, in addition to materials and everything else. And during the COVID period, we had, extraordinary escalation. So these days, it's really hard to have that conversation that that satisfies people, because the escalation that occurred during the COVID years, everybody remembers it, but now you forget it a little bit, a few years later. But projects that are built now cost double from what projects that were built 8 years ago. And it adds up. It's a lot of money. It adds up quickly. So that's the challenging part. We know prevailing wage rates are not going to come down. We know that. That's part of the cost escalation that goes into, if we do this project in a year, what's it going to cost? Materials certainly go up, less clear how much that might go up, but the wages will definitely go up,
And Steve, typically what percentage of a project is made up of labor costs? I mean, I'm sure it depends on the project and things
Yeah,
like that.
right. That's what I was thinking. So 50%, something like that, 40, 50%, depending on the project.
Mhm.
Yeah. But all the other costs, that's just looking at the construction costs, you know, all the other management is also on the project, all the soft costs are on it,
Right.
you know, all of that.
So on a $40 million project, we could safely assume that 20 million is gonna be just
Yeah.
labor
Yeah.
before we purchase the thing.
Yep, yep. And those costs are going up, and the rest of
Yep.
it, the other costs, not necessarily the labor costs, that's what the other escalation was during the COVID. It was all the other costs, not the labor costs, you know, that went up extraordinarily during that time period. So, you know, none of this is easy, you know, to try to do that and that's what makes that conversation really hard today is the selective comments about a project that was built, you know, up in mid-state New Hampshire and compare that to this or a project that was built 8 years ago in an adjacent town. You know, they aren't the same, but it's a lengthy conversation to have with someone to try to explain the details, and it's just really hard to do when you have, you know, whether it be town meeting comments, you know, you can't speak to in detail every single one of those when it's often the same answer, you know, because the questions are all kind of get answered the same way with this lengthy conversation. And it's just hard to combat, if you will, that, because people don't get convinced without a very long, detailed answer. And even then, they say, well, I don't care, we still can do it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
You know, so that's really hard to do. And escalation, especially the COVID materials escalation, it changed a lot, you know, and that's really hard. That doesn't help any of us, you know, that's for sure. It's, you know, whether it be on the project level, the project team level, or the taxpayer level, you know, no one in that group benefits by the cost being higher.
Correct.
You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, really good explanation, thank you. Anything else around?
With
Mike?
this in mind, you know, it not passing, have we considered what might need to be done to save the water and sewer building if we don't get something relatively quick?
I mean, I don't know, I think we've been considering that all along, like, I don't think that's a new concept. Like, we know that we have work, we know that with all those buildings will need something. So whether it's a roof repair, heating, like, we know, like, my, you know, concerned about town hall, you know, catastrophic HVAC failure, that sort of thing, right? Like, so, all of those things are on our list, and I think they were on the list before we start, because we knew, and that's why maybe this project evolved the way it was. It did, you know, to identify all of these things, and, okay, this is the number to do it all. Well, it's much more cost effective if we
Do it.
replace and do it all together now, as opposed to piecing it out over the
Right.
next 5 years or whatever. However long it takes us to fund it.
But nothing emergency.
Nothing else.
Until
Problem
something
with that.
fails, you know,
Yeah.
something falls down.
Yeah, I mean, like the roof, for instance, you know, I'm sure that building's sitting on water.
And that will take a lot more money than what we had at 40 million.
If you
I
do
mean, if we do it
piecemeal,
piecemeal,
Yeah, and the issue with the buildings in general, you know, is because of where we are, what year this is, where our building code is. Like, we can't just replace in kind. You know, things have to be upgraded.
Mhm.
You spend a certain amount of money, that triggers a lot more, right? Like, we looked at this HVAC project in 2021 for town hall. And, you know, the value of the actual HVAC equipment was high enough that it triggered so many other items within the building, and that's why we stopped the project then, because we didn't have the funds
right,
to get there,
Mhm.
right? Like, so, you know, obviously that hasn't gotten cheaper, but there is a building code piece of this, that when you hit a certain threshold of money, it triggers ADA, it triggers other items. And then that's not even mentioning other building code related items, whether it's structural or something to that effect that has to be updated or changed. You know, so it's kind of one of those things, right? When you're hitting these big systems in these buildings, right? It's not just one system, like it triggers so much more. So.
and the problem is, as I understand it, if we did have a catastrophic failure, number one, it would need to be addressed immediately.
Mhm.
Number two, we can't go out and do a borrowing for that.
Not easily.
No,
That's
so
not how it works.
now you're talking about it coming out of the operating budget, and that's gonna affect other
Which is the
services.
concern all along, is
Yeah.
when you don't do this as a debt exclusion,
Right.
you now put in jeopardy your school and municipal
Yeah,
funding.
yeah. Yeah. Just wanted to
Yeah, and you're,
Just wanna drive that point home.
emphasize that, yeah, I mean, if the fuel island's 30 years old,
Yeah,
if you get a leak there, you've got major costs.
don't even think about that.
Yeah, I know, just
That's like 40 million would mean nothing
kinda
if there
where
was
we're
a
at.
fuel.
Yeah,
I'm really concerned about the sewer and water garage. That is, I mean, if it delays 2 or 3 years, I mean, I'm not too sure that thing will still be standing.
Yeah, we're looking at that building pretty hard. I met with DPW yesterday down there, like looking for a temporary solution for the back truck.
Yep.
You know, to get through winters and stuff. We got some ideas for that. It's gonna cost money, but, there's some things we gotta figure out down there, so.
And I know they updated the code in regards to your point, Keith, about the percentage of the value
Yeah,
when you go over that value, you now have to do everything within that.
yeah.
I only know that because I had that happen
Yeah,
in
and
my
even in
house.
some cases, like I said, if you don't, even in some cases, if you don't go over the value, there are still
Other
items that could get triggered
Yes.
as a result of whatever. So, yeah, it's not an easy, simple,
Solution.
yeah, that's why.
It isn't.
That's why everybody loves construction, because it's so easy.
anything else? No? All right.
We, just one last one, if we
Yep.
have any ideas in the meantime, that I guess wouldn't cost any money, but how would we gather to throw those out, to see, to maybe not reduce the scope, but to change things around a little bit? Would we meet for those types of things, or can we communicate those?
We may, yeah, you can communicate them through me,
Okay,
we can keep a list for sure,
okay.
see how that plays out.
So my understanding is the committee's not dissolved.
Committee's not dissolved.
So-
My wife will be happy to hear that.
I think we're obviously waiting for, a little bit of direction from the community.
Sure.
Through the select board and
Yep,
that stuff.
of
so-
course.
So we're not shuttering yet.
Right, right.
But if you talk to people and they tell you something, like, let me know.
I think Beth is our best conduit at this
Yes.
point.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think those no voters, like, I feel like putting out a personal ad. Did you vote no on the DPW? I'd like to meet you for coffee.
Those-
I don't know, maybe not, maybe I'm dating myself.
Don't know. All right. I think we're done with that item. All right, thank you, everybody. Item number 5, review and discuss the annual town meeting report. I did get a copy of
Mhm.
the original version you put together. Do we still have to make a report?
We still have to make a report.
Okay.
I made an adjustment in the report, that calls out the election vote. But yes, we're still at Article 1, making a report.
Okay.
I know that you had mentioned that you may not.
I may not be, I wouldn't know till I'm gonna plan on not being there.
Okay.
Just so everybody know, my son has a medical issue that he's gotta have taken care of, and I have
We're
to be
all
at an
town meeting
appointment out in
members,
Boston. Yeah.
We'll all
yeah.
be there.
Yeah, so I feel bad not being there to give the report, but I don't have any choice
So
on this
we can
one.
figure out between the 4 of us.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it for you.
Yeah,
I think it'd be good coming from you guys.
I may not be there because I'm in Boston doing
Are
a
you-
heart heart stress
I'm going
test.
with him. You're coming on now.
That's only because of the vote. That's the reason I have
Make sure
a heart
make
problem.
sure you send me the copy. If everything goes,
It's in the drive, I changed it.
okay, you did change it in the drive. Okay, if everything goes as planned, there's a chance I'll be back in time if traffic
If
is
not, I'll give
in
it.
favor. Okay.
I'm happy to give
All
it.
right.
We're on fly, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't want to.
But I mean, I'd
We'll
rather,
talk offline.
You're a great speaker.
Okay.
I'd rather it came from me. I understand because you're on the board that, maybe don't want to do it, but
I'm fine.
I'll try. Okay,
I don't care.
all right.
I don't mind. I mean, I'm pretty out in front on this project, right? I still think I think we missed an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a hard time not ad libbing if I've been given a microphone to talk about the project. I might filibuster.
And it would and I'm sure it would be better than anything any of us could have written. All right, so that's in everybody's drive. Everybody might want to have a copy of that, just in case you get called up.
I didn't see did you send out the new,
I haven't seen
I
it.
just changed.
I saw the old
I changed it in the document.
former or whatever?
It changed the
I
document just
changed it
recently.
in the document.
Okay, so go back and revisit that?
Yeah.
The
Okay,
beauty of
sorry.
Google Docs, yes.
It's a narrative form, right, basically?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't make any more changes because they print it. I can't read off.
Unless you call me and tell me.
I can't read off a computer. Yeah, I'll look at it. All right. Anybody have any other business? Anything else on the town report before? I mean, it is what it is.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, I'm good as long as everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
So we still exist as a committee,
We do.
We do.
and we will stay that way until,
Till the select board dissolves you, I believe.
Yeah.
We were appointed by the
that's what I was gonna
select
say, until unless we get this all, like, well, just thrown out as a committee. Okay.
Oh, here.
No, you're stuck. We're
board.
stuck
You wanna
with
tell
each
your
other.
wife that you come here every month.
Yeah.
Until that one time.
And one time, is
What?
where is he? Oh, he's up at the, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Lantern Room, that's not there anymore.
Why wasn't that meeting televised?
Mark?
All right. I guess we're ready to adjourn for a while. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, so moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Uh,
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.